Okay, we have located Allan. He beat the traffic. So we're going back to the panel that was going to happen before. Work, 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 revolutionizing recruitment. And we have Alberto Knapp and Allan Grant in a fireside chat. So let me tell you a bit about each of them. Alberto, he's founder and president of one of the main digital design consultancies in Spain called The Cocktail. Now, Alberto's like a tiny bit old school in a wonderful way. He sold his internet startup to a major TV company in Spain in 1999. So he's been around digital for a long time. He's worked with a lot of startup accelerators such as Wyra, SeedRocket, AI, and he's a partner and advisor at SIA Ventures, a venture capital fund donated to later stage growth. Allan Grant founded Curebit, a social referring platform for companies, formerly of a Y Combinator and 500 startups. He's now founded Hired.com, which raised $17 million. And actually, you don't know this, Allan, but your team in London just asked me to speak at your event that's happening on gender disparity. So that's happening in December. So I'm going to be speaking at your event then. And then interesting facts about the two of them. Alberto has an office dog called Maggie. Now, in a team of 250 staff in his office here in Madrid, Maggie rules the roost. And Maggie comes to the office every day. But where is she today? She's at the office. Why is she not on stage with you? Maybe Maggie could do the fireside. And then Allan is a long-time burner. Goes to Burning Man, 10th year now in a row. And we're not allowed to talk about what camp he camps at. My 4th year for me. So with that, fireside chat to the two of you. Please come up.
What do we do with the chairs, please?
And the time in startups moves fast. So at the time of the bio, we had raised about 17 million. At this point, we have raised about 70.
7-0. That's amazing. Let's move this across. Okay, so drinks are on Allan.
So good morning to everybody. Sorry for the delay in our fireside chat. We will have now 20 minutes to go with Allan over what he's doing at Hired.com and to share his view on human resources and digital, which I think we'll believe it's very interesting. And who doesn't here have some human resources challenges ahead, no? So yeah. Allan, why don't you tell us something about Hired.com? How did you come up with the idea, what it is?
Sure, absolutely. So me and my two business partners, we're, so to speak, serial offenders. This is not our first rodeo. Actually, for me, it's the 7th company that I have started kind of in my 15 years as an entrepreneur. And the biggest problem...
How old are you?
I'm 33.
My
so
goodness.
It's taken some time. But our biggest problem, company after company, has always been attracting technical talent. And whereas every previous company I intended to start, this is the first company that started by accident. Me and my two business partners, we were at a bar, as all great ideas start, and we were talking about our biggest problems. At that point, I had started Curebit, which is now called Talkable. We're funded by Y Combinator. We raised $1.2 million, and we're struggling to hire technical talent. And after 6 months of struggle, I was telling my friends, Matt and Doug, my business partners, about these challenges at the bar, and they said, well, can we solve this? And so this idea came of turning recruitment on its head, and that's kind of how Hired came about.
It's great. And what's your main value proposition for?
So before Hired, people would apply for jobs. Now the jobs come to you in a very simple form. So the original name behind Hired was developer auction. And so the whole idea was, as an engineer, if you're a great engineer, every single day you're getting 3 to 5 job offers per day.
Yeah.
Right? That's over 1,000 job offers in 1 year for every top engineer in Silicon Valley. So we said, what if we take this demand, which people mostly ignore, it's spam, right? It's spam.
Yeah.
And what if we turn this into real value? What would that look like? What would developer auction look like? And we said, well, the companies have to come to you, and they have to provide compensation details up front. They have to say, this is how much we'll pay you, if you pass the interview. And they'll see each other's offers. And so if I send you an offer, I'm Facebook, and Google wants to send you an offer, they'll see each other's salaries, and they can compete in a transparent open market. And it's time limited. So the whole process, it only takes 2 weeks. So you start on Monday, 2 weeks later you're done, and within this time period you receive job offers. So that's the core of the concept.
Okay, and what kind of profiles do you have mostly? Coders, designers?
So we started with software engineers, but we believe this is applicable across a wide range of industries. So if we look at recruitment globally, it's a $500 billion industry across the world. And that's across industries such as software engineering, healthcare, finance, accounting, legal. There's multiple sectors. Each one of those has multi-billion-dollar companies in that. We started with software engineering, and since then we've gone into sales, marketing, design, product management, data science. And our ambition is to expand beyond that into a whole range of industries.
Where are you most active geographically?
So as a marketplace, similar to how a company like Uber develops, we said first that we have to focus in one market at a time. And so we started in San Francisco, and we focused in San Francisco software engineering for all of 2012 and 2013 before we started to expand. In 2014, we said, what would it be like to try maybe New York? We had a lot of companies reaching out to us in New York. And since then, we've continued to expand geographically. We now have offices in 19 cities. So we have 19 small headquarters around the world, including 6 international locations. So we have international locations such as London and Paris in Europe. In Asia Pacific, we have locations such as Melbourne and Sydney in Australia, Singapore, and in the northeast, the United States, we have Canada as our first international location.
That's great. That's great. We will try to open the conversation a little bit with you guys. How many people here are coders? Coders? Designers?
It's never too late to start.
Business people? Investors? What do you guys do?
Conference attendees?
Students? Okay, that's very important. Because from my point of view, if you're a coder, we see it constantly in our company, the hardest thing is to manage your own career because you are always getting new offers, seeing new things. It's like being married and having nice girls or men every night knocking at your door. I mean, you might like your wife or spouse a lot, but it's very difficult. The main challenge I see for anybody working on internet right now, especially coders and designers and so on, it's how they can manage their own career and stop jumping from one work to another just for the salary and so on.
Yep.
What's your perspective on that?
Well, it's interesting because I think that the whole concept of work has changed a lot over the course of the last 100 years. It used to be that you find a company, and this is like your family, and you go to work, and this is your life. You're going to spend more than 10 years. You're going to spend your life committed to one company.
Anybody here has worked more than 10 years?
Same company, more than 10 years? Anybody?
5 years? Yeah, I myself.
1 year? So today, things move a lot faster. But it's not just that people are changing how much time they want to commit to a company. The lifespan of a company is also much faster, right? A company used to be this concept that exists for hundreds of years. Now, a great, fast-growing company may start, get big, get acquired, and all of this happens within 5-10 years, right? Yeah. And so what we're seeing is that the time that somebody spends at one particular job gets compressed. This is not disloyalty. This is also the fact that technologies change very quickly. Your skill set moves very quickly, and so basically, because of this compression, the aspect of finding what your next role is becomes more and more important. You almost have to start looking for your next job before you start.
That's terrible. But it is like that, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. What advice can you give to the recruiters, to the companies that want to hire people? How should they balance the package of salary, extras, and so on?
Well, so this is actually something that's interesting. When we started, the original name, Developer Auction, we actually were wrong about what we thought was very important in this business. So what we thought was that if we create an open market where companies can meet candidates, that we would have competition, and that competition would be competition on salary, on compensation, right? What will you make? And there is competition, but the competition actually is not on salaries. The competition is on speed. Yeah. And there's other aspects, right? How interesting is this? What is the impact? How does this fit the things that you're passionate about? But the biggest factor that you as a company can change is how fast you move, right? So on a marketplace like Hired, originally the model was 1 week, right? So on Monday you start, on Sunday you're done, and companies have to reach out to candidates, and so. On Monday, we sent an email saying, hey, we have this new group of 88 candidates. And on Sunday, or Friday, we would send, hey, it's your last few days. Reach out to them. And all the offers would come on Sunday, on the last day. People are generally late. Yeah. But then the companies that were a little bit earlier saw that it's more likely that the candidates will say, let's talk, right? And so they start to get earlier and earlier. And now companies reach out as early as possible on Monday. Now, let's say you reach out to a candidate on Monday and the candidate says, sure, let's talk. On Tuesday, that candidate is going to have more offers. On Wednesday, they're going to maybe have 20 offers, right? And so the company that says, okay, let's have the interview today, right now. Let's talk. Let's get you in front of the founding team. Those are the companies that win. Also, when you compare startups versus big companies, they have something different, right? A big company has a big vision and things like that. A startup has true vision, founders that can pitch that vision. And so the companies that have been most successful and Hired are companies that sort of bring that forward early in their interview process, right? Instead of saying, let me give you 10 hours of coding tests, instead they'll start, okay, let me first tell you what we're doing in the world. And then let's talk about why, whether you're a fit.
Yeah, that's a great advice. And where do you think this is heading? Are we always going to have scarcity of talented people? Is it going to change?
So there's two opinions. On the one side, you see that we're training more, software engineers. Let's just take software engineering for one example. We're training more software engineers than ever. We have some very interesting patterns. So previously, you would develop sort of what your career is at the start of maybe university, and that's going to be your career for the rest of your life. Now that's changing. You can become maybe a scientist, then you go to school, and all of a sudden you become a data scientist, right? Yeah. Things change very, very quickly. So on the one hand, you have this, but on the other hand, there is a wide range, dynamic range of talent. So Steve Jobs famously said that there is a high dynamic range in talent where the top percentage are, many times as productive as sort of the next percentage. So I believe that there will continue to be this scarcity of demand at an increasing rate in all sorts of knowledge work, right? Where we started was industrial, right? Industrial society, right? So each individual has roughly the same amount of productivity. Then we moved to a service society where, okay, maybe, as a service worker, one person to another person, there's a wider range. As a knowledge worker in the knowledge economy, that range is very big, 10 times, 100 times. So I think that it will continue.
Yeah, amazing. It's really interesting what you said about how to hire and that thing about speed. I will apply it tomorrow at the cocktail and we'll start using that. So, guys, do you have any questions you would like to ask, please?
Yeah. Thank you, Allan, for coming to Spain to speak about your company. Last time you bought Breeze in France, and I wanted to know what is the next step for you in Europe, or do you plan to come as well to Spain to help companies to develop the business?
That's a great question. So just a little bit of context for those that are not familiar. Breeze is a company based in Paris that implemented the Hired model after sort of we came to market, and we've now seen over 100 companies that have taken sort of this idea of companies reaching out to candidates instead of the other way around, and they've launched in different cities, different industries, and things like that. So generally, the way we see it is Hired wants to be a global company, right? And talent is increasingly global, right? So, we would like to be in Spain, and we'd like to be, all over Europe, all over, Asia, Africa, North America, South America, all over the world. What's happening now, though, is that we make a decision sort of how do we come to that market. So Breeze was the first time that we've acquired a company rather than placing our own team there. So how we'll continue to expand, that's sort of up in the air. Yeah. It depends on the market. But we invite the competition because we think that together is better than separate. And so if a company, let's say in Spain, takes a similar model and they receive traction and they grow, well, let's partner. Let's join this together.
Yeah, true. Any more questions? If you want to make them in Spanish, I will try to translate. So that's not an issue.
We have space for probably one more question. Come on, guys. Gotta ask something. We've got a question in the front row right here. Nice work. You're asking a lot of questions. I like this.
Okay. I was just wondering, how would you say Hired differentiates from other apps or internet pages that offer jobs to, like Corner Job, Job and Talent? Why would Hired be different to those models?
So it's actually very interesting because now we see, sort of a wave in recruitment. When we started in 2012, this wasn't the case. So when we started in 2012, we saw an angel list. There were 600 companies that were doing something in human resources, and none of them were going after the biggest problem, right? The actual hiring of people. Companies were challenging, tackling problems like how do we do interviews over video? How do we assess, technical talent? Something like, CoderPad or HackerRank. But nobody was actually trying to help companies and candidates connect. Since then, as we've launched and grown and raised increasingly amount of capital, we've seen a lot of companies enter the market. But with marketplaces, there is generally a Pareto principle, a power law effect. So what you see is that there is a small number of companies that have the majority of the impact. And so while we have a lot of competitors now that are doing this, we haven't seen anybody that has had a relatively similar type of impact. One interesting example is a very innovative, very fantastic company in the previous generation of recruiting called Indeed, right? So Indeed started a few years before us and aggregated job boards. Traditionally, you have jobs and you can apply to them. So since we've launched, Indeed has thrown millions, maybe at least tens of millions, maybe hundreds of $1,000,000 at copying what we do, and they copy it very precisely.
That's fun, isn't it?
It's a product called Indeed Prime, and if you look at their homepage, and if you look at Wayback Machine on our homepage, you see that their homepage is our homepage 6 months ago. If you look at their advertising copy, you see it's the exact same headlines from a few months ago. They've gone to the same conferences that we sponsor, and they said, we want to do what Hired is doing, and we want to sponsor the same conference. With Hired, we charge companies 15% of their first year salary. What that comes out on a software engineer is maybe $20,000, right? So Indeed, one other thing that we do is that we give a part of that money back to the candidate. So we give $2,000 or $1,000 back to the candidate when they get the job. So when Indeed started to copy this, they said, okay, we're going to charge only $10,000 instead of $20,000, and we're going to give even more money to the candidate, $5,000 instead of $2,000. And with all these things, they have not been able to get the kind of traction that we've had. Yeah. So since then, they've done things like reduce their prices and said, okay, for example, just a few weeks ago, they said, for sales, you can use this for free. You don't have to pay us, right? And so these struggles show kind of the Pareto principle and power law effect in marketplaces, because the value as a candidate on any marketplace is how many companies are there. And the value to any company is how many candidates are there. Right, and so it's very difficult to break that network effect. Similar to how a company like Uber, once they come into a market, it's very difficult for another company to get that same liquidity.
Amazing. Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Gracias.
For your time. Gracias.